You are listening to Healing with Haley, episode 26, How Do You Know Something Bad Isn't Going to Happen? Welcome to the podcast where it's all about healing, self-improvement, our brains, and living your dream life. My name is Haley Kirk, and I'm a life coach, mom, and entrepreneur here to show you how to be the hero of your story. Hello, you guys. I had an experience that I want to tell you about. And it's crazy because I had the title of this podcast episode in a draft in my Google Drive. How do you know something bad isn't going to happen? Because I was inspired by a scene, like I always am, from a movie that my son is now really interested in, which is Finding Nemo. And the scene that I love so much is where Dory and Marlin are in search of Marlin's son, Nemo, who was taken by a scuba diver who just happens to be a dentist. And he lives in Sydney, Australia. And they find this out from this scuba mask that had been dropped in the ocean. And so Dory and Marlin go on this quest to find Marlin's son, Nemo. And on one of the challenges is they get swallowed up by a whale. And Marlin is freaking out because there's water in the mouth of the whale. And then the water starts shrinking. And then the water shrinks, the whale lifts its tongue, but Marlin is holding on by one of the, sensory nodes of the tongue, and he's holding on to Dory. And Dory is telling Marlin, the whale is saying it's time to let go. And then Marlin says, but how do you know something bad isn't going to happen? And then Dory wisely answers and says, I don't. And then Marlin makes this bracing face, like a scrunchy bracing face, like, oh, I don't know. And then he lets go. And you guys, that scene is there's so much to dissect in that scene, but I want to give you that story and now the story of last night because it's a doozy. So I love stories. I feel like stories just bring points home so much better and more interestingly and with more depth than just saying it. You know what I mean? Show, don't tell is what my brother would always tell me to do when I'm writing or talking. So I'm getting my son ready for his bath. And all of a sudden, he's just screaming. And I'm like, okay, is this like a tantrum? Like he doesn't want to bathe, which is common. But then it escalated. And then he started laying on his blanket and just like looked like he was trying to it might have been constipation. I'm not sure, but he just looked like he was in so much pain. And I was like, something's not right because he normally doesn't do this. And then I put him on the bed to try to calm him down. And then all of a sudden I see his lips turn blue and purple. And I'm like, oh no, okay, no, we're going freak out, right? And I just had this moment of panic. Like, I don't know what's happening right now. So I just bolt to the urgent care that, thank God, is so close to my house. Literally a 3-5 minute drive. I get there. They don't know what's happening. They're checking his oxygen, which is great, but the heartbeat is high. And so they're like, I don't know if something is obstructing his airway. They can do better scans and diagnoses at the hospital. And they called the ambulance. And I was like, no, like, oh my God, that big bill. Like, I don't want that bill. And so then they were like, no, just do it. It's good. You know, we want to make sure he gets there as soon as possible. So I go in the ambulance. They take me right in. And, it was fine, I guess. He had 3 of those episodes where he was like contorting his body, his lips were turning blue. And that happened at my house, that happened at the urgent care, and that happened at the hospital. And so, they did all these like tests, and they think it might have been like a viral respiratory thing. But, oh man, just seeing your child in so much pain, and it was just this moment of panic and presence at the same time. Nothing was more important to me than my son and his survival. At that moment, I didn't care about anything. My insecurities about my finances, my body, my relationships, my career, my house. Like, I just did not care. I did not care. Everything vanished and went away. And then I even found myself on the way to the hospital, or to urgent care, from my house to urgent care. I looked at my son with sheer panic. And I hadn't up until that point. I was very calm and resolute. And then I began to panic. And I looked him straight in the face, and I didn't know. And I do regret, but it's hard to control. But it just, I think being calm as the parent, it was my goal that whole time. And I kept keeping it to the present. And I made sure I focused on something physical. So I was like, hey, I'm just going to focus on my breathing. This is going to help. Because if I'm not calm, how can my son be calm? And so I'm like, this will help. This is practical. This is something I can hold on to. And so I was just breathing. And then he was breathing, like, after his episode, right? But like after that, he would go into this state of like kind of delirium, and he would get really tired after one of those episodes. And it was so comforting that I could do something, right? I can be calm for my son. And then what was so beautiful is just me breathing is like, I kept focusing on the present moment. I was like, he's alive. He's breathing. Yes, his heart rate is up, and we're going to watch that. But like, he's alive right now. I am not going to focus on a tombstone with his birth date and death date on it. And I don't care what that date is right now, because it's not today. It's not right now. Right now, he's alive. I'm going to fully immerse myself in this moment, because I don't know. I don't know when he's going to die. And the thought is scary, because it's that uncertainty. But I'm just going to be right here and right now, because he right here and right now is alive. And I'm going to breathe, and I'm going to focus on this moment. I don't know. No one knows. No one knows if he will stay alive or if I will stay alive for X amount of days. But what I do know is he's alive, and he's breathing, and his heart rate is up, and his oxygen's good. So that is what I chose to focus on. And I'm telling you guys, the power of thought work and presence is unbeatable. Because even though I had not even the medical doctors knew what was happening, I was confident that I knew he was alive in that moment. I knew that. And I was just going to focus on that. And where focus goes, energy flows. So I continued to stay calm and breathe. And I know that helped my son stay calm and breathe, because it's that latency, right? The monkey see, monkey do. How we act as parents is very heavily influences our children. And everything was fine. This update, he's well, he's fine. He's taken, we're doing everything the doctor told us to do, so we're doing good, hydrating. Now he's sleeping, and now I'm recording this podcast telling you guys the story. So I am telling these two stories because fear is appropriate in that moment, right? It was appropriate for me to fear. And I loved that emotion for me, because what did it do? It made me think critically in a way, because I needed to panic in a way, I needed to fear to get myself to the urgent care, to get myself to the hospital, to move my body, right? And I know there's different aspects of fear. From fear, you can the flight or freeze, and then now there's a fourth one. But in that moment, the emotion of fear gave me actions to solve a problem, which I was very grateful for. And then once it wasn't, I wanted a different emotion, right? I was in the care of the doctors. I was in the care of the ambulance. And so I didn't need fear anymore. It didn't drive me to take any helpful actions. So then I was asking presence. I was asking a different emotion from myself. I wanted to be calm. I wanted to be peaceful. So then what did I try to rewire my brain to do? We are at the hospital. These doctors care. They want the same thing I want, which is him to be alive and well. And they want to figure out what's going on, right? And in this moment right now, are we okay? Yes, we're okay. Okay. He's breathing. His oxygen's good. His heart rate's high. Okay, we're going to monitor that. Right there, that part right there. Okay, we don't know. That uncertainty piece. And so going back to the scene in that Finding Nemo movie where Marlin was gripping on to that node of the tongue of the whale. He's inside the mouth of the whale. And if he had held on, he would have not found his son. He would have stayed stuck in the body of the whale, which is there's so much biblical depth to this. It's a hero's near-death experience and a rebirth in a way. The hero, instead of conquering or conciliating the power of the threshold, is swallowed into the unknown and would appear to have died. The symbolic meaning of the belly of the whale, giving yourself over to something completely, letting yourself be swallowed by it, as it were, symbolically, with the faith that you are not going to be annihilated, but rather transformed, reborn into your true hero adventurous self. That's the sense of the belly of the whale motif in mythology. You're in it all the way. You're committed. You've made a decision. This is when things start to happen and your life becomes like an adventure. This is one way of applying the metaphorical message of myth to your real life. So I'm reading Jonah 1 and 2 in the King James Version of the Bible. Just for context into the story. So it sounds like Jonah was on the Ninevites' boat. I didn't know that. And there was a lot of tempestuous storms and waves. And so they prayed to God, asked for forgiveness, and then threw Jonah into the ocean. And then the Lord had prepared a fish to swallow up Jonah, and he stayed there for 3 days. And then, so that's chapter 1. And then chapter 2, Jonah's saying, how much he is sorry for his afflictions. He's asking for forgiveness. And he suffered a lot. The waters compassed me about. I went down to the bottoms of the mountains. The earth with her bars was about me forever. Oh my goodness. The weeds were wrapped around my head. Oh geez. Sounds like he suffered a lot. He suffered so much in this whale. That would be terrifying, to be swallowed by a whale. And then I'm going to link this in the show notes. This is so interesting. So the Armstrong Institute of Biblical Archaeology has this really cool article about how their guess as to what type of fish, the great fish, because we think whale, and probably from like literature, right? Like Moby Dick is kind of what they're suggesting, but they're kind of, contemplating if it was like a whale shark, and then their biggest guess, or their best guess, is a sperm whale. And they have this diagram of an exceptionally large male that they found in 1933 that was 24 meters. Oh my goodness, that's so big. That is so big. It's a symbolic representation of someone going through a transformation, a metamorphosis, a rebirth, and a tribulation, honestly, and coming out of it. And it even says, and the Lord spake unto the fish, and he vomited out Jonah upon the dry land. So I didn't know he was vomited. I thought he was spit out, but no, he was vomited out. More trials. Ew, that just sounds disgusting. But anyway, I really think that that scene in Finding Nemo, especially, Marlin and Dory, they've already gone through so much, right? They went through 3 sharks. They've gone through a bunch of, like a herd. I can't remember what you call a group of jellyfish. I'm looking it up right now. A smuck. A group of jellyfish is called a smack or a smuck. The term is thought to come from onomatopoeia and maybe derived from the sound of a painful sting. That's hilarious. Or a bloom. Okay, so they've gone through all these things. Going into the depths of the ocean even is a symbolic meaning. It's so interesting, though, because when you consider Marlin before losing Nemo, he's this fearful, antisocial, paranoid helicopter parent, and isn't really living, right? He's totally in fear, and he's kind of pushing this onto his son and incentivizing him to not, kind of not go to school, you don't have to go to school. And it's kind of interesting, that coddling, and not letting them live and grow, and that change, all of those fearful stops along the way, right? The sharks, the jellyfish, the deep ocean, and that really scary fish down in the bottom with all those teeth and the lights, and then the whale, right? I think the whale was almost the end of the stops along his quest. And it's so interesting to see the transformation that Marlin had from this fearful, don't leave the safety of the sea anemone, anemone, oh, that's hilarious, and totally willing to be swallowed up by a whale and let go of the note of the tongue and be literally swallowed by it and then push through his blowhole. So it's, as a parent, right, we, of course, are constantly bombarded by all these fears, right? Fear of choking, fear of being, suffocated by a blanket, fear of them running out in the street, fear of someone, anything tragic, really. I don't want to go into details, but the fears are there. And if we are just in that mindset of how do I know something bad isn't going to happen? And the simple answer to that is, I don't. So let go. I love that simple formula, that simple solution that's presented in the movie. Because when we hold on, right, if he had held on, that truly would have been his death, demise, and loss of his son. If he had held on to that tongue, the whale, what could the whale do, right? All right, I guess you want to be eaten, right? I guess you don't want me to help you. And it's so interesting how much Marlin, he hides in the sea anemone, right? Then he's hiding in the mouth of the whale, right? He's holding on. It's so interesting watching him hold on to these facades of safety, right? The sea anemone was supposed to protect them, but it didn't. Because they weren't in it, right? Him and his wife, I guess, at the time, his ladyfish friend. and then also in the whale. And so he's kind of holding on to these things, but the moment he lets go, it sets him free. The moment, it's like cause and effect. And a lot of times in life it doesn't happen this way, but in the movie, the moment he let go, he was set free from the whale. And oh man, for me, that really helped, because when I was in the thick of his episodes, right, I was like, what can I do? Okay, I can take him to the hospital, right? And then once I'm there in the urgent care at first, and then they didn't know. Then I felt the panic and the fear, and I started crying, and I was just like, oh my God, they don't know. And then I asked myself, I was like, I don't know. They don't know, I don't know. So how can I show up? I can be calm. I'm going to breathe for my son. I'm going to let go of trying to find certainty when clearly it's not being given to me. How can I receive certainty in this moment? I'm not given it. So therefore, that's reality. The reality is I don't know. And neither do the doctors, the professionals, right? Neither do the trained professionals know what's going on with my son. And in that moment, I needed to let go of certainty and allow time, allow presence, allow breathing. And it felt so good. I felt free. I didn't allow fear to keep me in the belly of the whale, if you will, right? The belly of the whale. This is fun. I didn't let fear keep me in the belly of the whale. I let go of the need for certainty in that moment when reality was presenting me uncertainty. And when we argue with reality, that's when we suffer. I want to mitigate suffering as much as possible. And what I felt in that moment, my son's breathing, I felt his breathing, and he was sleeping because he was really tired after that episode. And he was on my chest. They were telling me, we're going to call 911. We don't know what's happening. And all I could do was breathe and try and be calm. And I liked showing up that way, because had I not let go, like Marlin did in Finding Nemo, I would have been stuck in the whale of uncertainty. I would have been stuck in the mouth and the belly of this, what's going to happen? Is he going to die? Oh no. And I would have been pacing. He couldn't stay. My son wouldn't be able to stay calm. He would have woken up and been freaked out, and maybe that would have triggered another episode. I don't know, but I know that would have made the situation worse. I know that would have made it worse for me and for my son. And so it was such a great example to me, a reinforcer, if you will, how important it is to question your thoughts and choose the thoughts you want to have. Is this thought giving me peace? Is there a stress-free reason to keep this thought? Is there a reason to let it go? Right? And asking these questions allows a lot of wiggle room to choose how you want to feel, and to feel the freedom and to let go of stressful thoughts and suffering. Because as much as I was uncertain, I was actually at peace. I was at peace. I was watching my son. Once we got to the ambulance, he started to panic a little bit. But then he saw how calm I was. And in the ambulance, they had to put him in like a car seat. And I gave him a movie, and he was doing just fine. And I was looking at my son, I was like, wow, he is alive. Like, look at those beautiful curls. And I was just trying to soak in every ounce of the present moment. And that kept me from my egoic mind going into the future. What's going to happen? Is going to have another episode? Are these doctors going to also not know? Is it asthma? Oh, my dad has this history of heart valve disorders. And, I could have given energy and attention to those thoughts, but I let them pass. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I really don't want to focus on those thoughts right now. I'm actually looking at how calm my son is, and he's breathing, and he's well, and the ambulance people aren't freaking out. So I want to be calm as well in this moment. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in, for listening to my stories, and I hope that this gives you value. I hope that you take what I'm telling you and take these stories and these questions with you. I think questioning your mind and asking it if it's giving you the results that you want is of the utmost value. I can't think of anything more valuable than that tool of questioning your mind and really allowing the experience of life you want to have, right? I love how emotions create the quality of your life. You could have all these possessions and accomplishments, right? But where do you get fulfillment? I think that fulfillment comes from the emotions. How do you feel? Do you feel happy? Do you feel calm? Do you feel present? I think those are more valuable than accomplishments and goals and attainments. So thank you so much for listening and tuning in. By the way, I am very passionate about this new project I have. It is called Love Your Body, totally unrelated to this episode, but I'm very passionate about this topic because another experience happened to me where it was the catalyst for something I've been wanting to work on, is a program and a webinar and a web series about how to love our bodies, undoing and questioning the thoughts about our bodies and the conditioning and messaging we've been sent growing up, and then rewiring the brain, asking the brain, potentially letting go of some thoughts that aren't helping us. So that is going to happen September 2nd. It is a 90-minute webinar. It is going to allow you the tools. You're going to be given tools. You're going to be given new belief systems about your body that you can take onward. I want from this webinar, I want you to feel confident regardless of the number on the scale, regardless of the number on your clothes. I want you to leave this webinar feeling at home with your body, feeling happy and content with what you've been given, and also doing and taking care of your body for the right reasons, because it's a gift to you. And I am so excited to share that project with you guys. If you are interested, please click the link in the bio to sign up. It is only $15 and it's a 90-minute webinar. You get to save it. It's going to be awesome. I cannot wait. I hope you guys have a lovely Sunday, and I will catch you later.